Thank you guys for coming, and let's go. Welcome to the Real Estate Mailbag. I'm Angie Lawless, and I'm here with my co-host, Steve Morris, the great joke teller, and Brandon Miller. We super excited to have you guys here, and Steve, tell them about Wagon Wheel.
Okay. All right, guys. So we are Wagon Wheel Title, a real estate title company. We've got 7 attorneys on staff, and our pledge is that we make our real estate clients look like these stars that they are in their transactions, and we provide our clients with a first-class experience on this podcast. We interview the best of the best in the real estate industry. That's you guys, and bring real estate tips, tricks, and stories to anyone interested in real estate. We want to hear your questions going forward. So if you have questions or situations that you would like to hear us discuss, please send them to mailbag@wagonwheeltitle.com. Brandon, take it away. There's your other microphone.
All right.
All right, up first is Mike Grayson with Tyler York. So Mike is originally from Florida. He came to Nashville to go to Belmont, where he then had a 12-year recording career after Belmont. So go check him out. He comes from a family of local builders and actually built his own house from the ground up. So Mike believes he brings tons of knowledge about new construction. He has a lot of advice to offer buyers in that market. So, Mike, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Also, Mike lives in Thompson Station with his wife and 3 children.
Okay.
I think I've got Kendra.
Oh, did I go the wrong way? Brandon's next. No?
I'm next now.
You're next now. Dude.
Don't give me the microphone. I won't give it back. George Rowe, I saw you on the streets this morning. I honked at you, in case you're wondering. At the corner. Yeah, that's me. You were looking good. Oh. Fortunately, you were just standing there in that moment. All right, so Lynn Smith, a fellow Kentuckian. Hey, are you a Kentucky Colonel? I'm a Kentucky Colonel. We should figure that out. Yeah. Oh yes, my man. Yeah, we're colonels together. Sorry, Lynn. This is your introduction. We'll get back to you. So Lynn Smith, guys, originally from Kentucky. She spent summer nights in Nashville during college. Doing what? Well, we won't ask.
Going to live music. Lots of live music.
Of course. Visiting friends, checking out lots of live music. She fell in love with Nashville and moved here in 2007. Since then, she's become actively involved in her community, and you can find her spending time at her favorite local nonprofit, Dream Streets. Let's see, combining her passion of real estate with her passion for helping others and serving at Dream Streets, she's a dedicated mentor in their Housing Fund program. Lynn brings her background in management and nonprofit to think on her feet and problem solve quickly. Need that. I need lots of problem solving quickly. She values providing an outstanding experience for each person tailored to their specific real estate needs. Additionally, Lynn is invested as an active member of the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors. She currently serves on the Housing Opportunities and Affordability Committee, is the 2024 chair for the Young Professionals Network Council, and is a recent Leadership Academy graduate. When she's not selling homes, Lynn can be found perfecting funny voices with her kids and spending time with her husband. She also enjoys traveling, water skiing, reading a great book, and listening to true crime podcasts. Funny voice? I mean, I feel like you gotta.
I knew you were going to ask me this. So my kids think it's funny when I talk like an old man. I say, back in my day. And for some reason, it gets them listening and actually gets them motivated to do what I'm asking them to do.
Then you have found something golden.
I have no idea why it works.
Okay, and our third panelist this morning is Kendra Nitz. Kendra is a Tennessee native who moved to Nashville in 2016 to start her life with her husband, Phil, who is here today. The following year, she became the administrative director for Remax Homes and Estates Lippman Group, where she developed a passion for real estate as she learned from some of the best in the business. Her hard work and ambition were quickly recognized, and in a short time, she was promoted to the role of accounting administrative manager for the company, where she started learning the financial side of the business. Inspired by her own experiences in buying and leasing homes, Kendra decided to become a real estate agent herself. She's always been passionate about helping others, and being an agent allows her to help people move into their new and exciting phases of life with clarity and ease. Homeownership and property management have allowed her to realize her vision for an ideal home, which she envisions as a sanctuary for family and friends, and she wants to help others do the same. Little stats, Kendra has sold over $20 million in real estate during her first 3 years as a realtor and was named Remax Homes and Estates Rookie of the Year in 2021. She achieved executive club status with Remax International within her first year. And in her second, she now works as a full-time realtor and is also the director of operations for Remax Homes and Estates Lippman Group and is a member of the Lippman Group leadership team.
Oh, man. And first of all, Kendra is the smiliest person I've ever met. I mean, I credit actually, I figure 95% of your success comes from just smiling at like everybody and everything.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah? Yeah. Okay, so what's the scariest thing you've ever done for fun? That's your icebreaker.
Honestly, I don't like scary things. Mm-mm.
I mean, just because of the time of the year. Sorry, you don't have to hold this morning. Are you sure? I would say this was years ago, but did Slaughterhouse, which is downtown. It was like a haunted house downtown. Do y'all remember that? Before they the building's probably gone now. But all I remember is I was with a friend who got so scared when someone jumped out, he punched him in the face. Just out of reaction, and then we got kicked out. So that was that. Right.
I would probably say zip lining. I love to zip line, and I want to skydive at some point, but want to wait till my kids are a little bit older just in case. But that's probably the extent of my venture into the scary world.
At what age is it okay for you to die skydiving with your children?
When they can sustain their own selves without a parent, so probably when they're 30-something.
I don't know what you were like at 30, but that may be generous.
I was
Okay.
having kids at 30, so I think that's fair age.
Okay, the next piece here, we're going to talk a little bit about what we call the market minute, which is kind of a little bit of data about sort of how the market is doing. Big headline I think everybody in this room knows is that mortgage rates have eclipsed 8% for the first time in 23 years. That's getting a lot of national headlines, a lot of local headlines.
Is that high?
It's fairly high. We like to talk about some of the ways we deal with that. But big picture, this time last year is kind of when rates hit 7% for the first time in 23 years. And we saw the market kind of grind to a halt in a way that it has not this year. We still see things moving. It's definitely a challenging environment. It makes all of our jobs more challenging. But I think most people do not think prices are going to fall. Goldman Sachs just came out with their 2024 housing market report. They're projecting houses will be up 1.3% in value in 2024, which is, I think, comforting for a lot of people that are looking to buy that know maybe rates are a little higher right now, but they can be able to move into the place they want to be and hopefully refinance when things come back down, which Goldman predicts rates will tick under 7 in the fourth quarter of next year. So that's kind of there's a lot of different people that are predicting rates, but that's kind of Goldman's rates. I've got a lot of other data, but I'm going to keep this short since we have a microphone issue. So we'll move on.
It's called the Market Minute.
Market minute.
Yeah.
Pass that back.
There we go. It's really good. It's not awkward at all. So now we're going to talk about our next segment is called Breaking Ground. where we bring you recent real estate news and get panelist reactions to the stories, okay? So we've got a couple articles. You may have those in your seats if you want to check them out. So Angie, you're up.
No, you do that one.
You want me to do that one? Okay. I'm going to do that one. So we've got an article there that says, eliminate these words from your negotiations. You don't want me to do that one? Let me do that one first.
Oh, crap, you printed the wrong one.
Indeed. But words that you should not say in negotiation. Is that right? Which one?
That's the wrong one.
This one?
You printed the wrong thing. I sent the right one to you guys. You do that. You do this one.
Which
and I'll
one?
go get the right article.
I'll do that. Guys, it is very likely you're about to hear another joke if they don't answer for a long time. All right, here you go. New article. There are several negotiations discussed in this article. Number one. Oh, gotcha. Sorry, let me reset the stage. Just forget this, and it gets edited. We're going to cut all of this out. Only you guys will know how bad that part was. So the title of the article is, here are the must-win everyday negotiations you're facing now. So these are things that when you wake up every day, you're negotiating with yourself. So number one, several negotiations discussed in this article. Number one, prospecting, negotiating with yourself, negotiating with buyer and seller leads, negotiating with your client, the home seller, negotiating with vendors like photographers, leaders, stagers, lenders, stagers, repair pros, negotiating with your strategic partners, service vendors. Pick one of these areas and give us your thoughts on that area, like as relating to negotiating with yourself, motivation, negotiating with your client, getting their expectations in line, negotiating with vendors, getting them to perform correctly. Which one is most challenging for you? Which one feels most important?
Well, I can start. As I was reading it, what stood out to me is a lot of the negotiating and the idea of negotiating really came down to setting expectations. So when we're with our clients and we're talking about things, we're letting them know what is going to happen, what we need from them throughout the transaction so that they're prepared and they're never caught off guard. And then it doesn't have to become a negotiation because we've already shown our value and we've made it really clear what they need down the line as we go.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to just negotiating with your client on both sides, one with buyers, negotiating really just their options, because what we find is in our world, like you hear all the lingo, you hear the 3-2-1 buy down, you hear all this, and then you're with a client and realize, oh wait, you don't know what that is. So really making sure that they know what all of their options are in this market, which is really important. And then on the selling side, it really feels like it went from kind of an initial negotiation, getting their expectations set, to now almost weekly to daily, of like really checking in, making sure they know the pulse of the market, knowing what is moving, what isn't moving, and why. It's just become much more frequent for me.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. On the seller side, I have a few listings right now, and when we listed, rates were not in the 8s, and right now it's just re-preparing them for how do we get your house positioned in a place where people can come in and move into this house and feel like they are, winning both sides. And I think that's so important with buyers and sellers. Buyers need to be educated on what they can do to get in a house, but sellers also need to know what they need to do to get the house to actually sell right now.
So just a quick follow-up to that. So with sellers, do you have kind of, when you're setting expectations up front, do you have kind of a written plan of, if this happens and it's on the market for this long, we do these things? Or is that more of a free-flowing thing as it goes along?
I mean, I have quite a few systems in place, but I feel like every home and every client is different, and every market is different, and every location is different, so you kind of have to keep the pulse on what's actually happening and then kind of go back and reevaluate what actually needs to happen moving forward.
All right, so this other article, it's called The Activity with Best ROI. It's old school networking intel poll shows. So this article says that, by a strong majority, 53% of respondents said old school networking has the best return on their time and money. and compared to 16% who said that social media and had the best ROI, and 7% who said that buying leads and lead gen software has the best ROI. So give me your thoughts. Agree? Disagree?
I agree. I think there are people out there killing it with social media, but you have to really have a system for that. And I think for the majority of us, it's that interpersonal, face-to-face networking that really shows who we are. And the social media piece of that, for me, backs up who I am if someone goes to look me up.
I completely agree. Most of my clients come from people I know, farming my neighborhood. I had a closing this summer from a friend. It was social media based. He saw me on social media promoting real estate. We went to high school together, and then he Googled me, and it came on my website. And I was like, "Hi, I haven't talked to you in 11 years. What's up?" Ended up selling his house, and they bought a house with me. So I think they kind of go hand in hand. Social media is great. Yeah. I am not one that is doing the reels and the content. I just no, thank you. But it works for some people. But I think face-to-face networking is definitely where it's at. Well, I appreciate that.
This also says that, just I thought was interesting, that the most challenging thing about the business environment 12 months from now is still interest rates. Oh, well. Do you know what? What's an interest rate, really? Can't worry about that. Let's go around it.
All right, and I believe the article Angie was just citing was from Inman. So, kind of aside from trade publications like Inman, maybe Richard Courtney's article in the Nashville Ledger, articles in the Tennessee and Wall Street Journal, what are the news sources that you all regularly turn to kind of stay informed? I think this is a market where information is critical. Conditions are changing constantly. It's very complicated, I think, right now. So how do you all stay kind of ahead of kind of the general conventional wisdom, as well as also your competitive realtors?
A couple of things. I think being involved and staying connected. It's that, again, face-to-face, interpersonal, being in the office, interacting with other realtors. It's part of why I love being part of Greater Nashville Realtors, because I'm not just hearing from people in my office, but all over the area. I think social media is great to a point. If we are seeing the headlines that our buyers and sellers are seeing, we need to know what they're getting in their feed every day, and then following where that's coming from. So getting to the article, getting to the source of that to know what this headline is trying to actually get at. And then we also have a really great daily email that comes out from Compass that I read every morning, because it gives us a bite-sized piece of what's going on in the market kind of globally.
I would say, things like Bigger Pockets and just some other podcasts that I listen to often. I will say, TikTok is not the spot to get most of it, but she is right. It's that is what consumers are consuming. So to be able to, I think the worst thing to do right now is to be tone deaf, which is no matter, date the rate, buy the house. It's yeah, that works, but it doesn't. Because most people are well, that rate's ugly. I don't want to date them, So it's being able to walk them through and meet them where they're at, which is yeah, the rates are ugly, but here are the options, and here's the facts to back it up, not just the emotion behind it.
I mean, I would say that rate is definitely a 3.
I have quite a few podcasts I listen to when I'm driving all around town. I have a few Facebook groups I'm in that are smaller groups of women in real estate all over the country, and we chat about what's going on in our market. Also, just communicating with my agents at my office. I know I can call any of them up at any time and ask them, hey, what did you hear about this, and what do you think about this? So I think it's just also, like Lynn said, just having those conversations and community.
Well, I do get a lot of my news from TikTok. Seriously, so it's true. I really love TikTok. But we are information junkies, and I think it's a fair point to say you don't know what your buyer or seller's getting, but what you can almost bet they're getting is the most sensationalized, worst story. So keeping up on news.
Yeah, they're not going to Inman in the morning and reading all the articles. We need to know what they're facing and then have the resources behind it to be able to speak to it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so path to profits, my favorite part, where you guys tell us how to make money in any market. Okay, so, but first, tell us a little bit about yourself. So these guys, I'm so impressed with these guys because, they've all been doing a very short period of time. And when we ask around for brokers to tell us who's your star, these guys, were, at the top of the list. And they're nervous, because they, getting up here. And so I'm so proud, and I really think you guys are so cool. So, but tell us a little bit about kind of how you got from, opening whatever you open or logging in to take your test or whatever you do to being superstars in real estate. No pressure.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a formula. I would say for
Just
me,
your formula.
yeah,
How you
for me it was surprising because I went from full-time music, and for anyone who has done music, that's an identity. So it's going from music into real estate was just a huge mental hurdle for me. But I was like, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it. And so that's everything from, you hear a lot of agents who will say, well, I'm just going to tiptoe, I'm going to start part-time, and which I think is okay for some. For me, it was like, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it. So left my job with benefits and all that and went full-time out of the gate, which for me, it was like a sink or swim moment. I mean, I'm not 20, fresh out of college. I'm married with 3 kids, and, there's a lot there. And so it really was like, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, and just went full on. And then the thing that was so surprising for me is I've been in town for 15 years. And kind of what we talked about at breakfast the other day was just being nice. Being nice is building a business. So what I realized is once people knew, oh, Mike's in real estate now, it's my phone started ringing. And it was people that were a sound guy on a tour from 5 years ago to, just different interactions that I've had where it's it wasn't me thinking, oh, I'm building my business, be nice to people. It's no, just be nice to people. And then the thing that's humbling is they all knew I was brand new. I don't know that I would have chose me knowing that I was brand new, but they trusted me. And so with that, I just felt the weight of responsibility of how do I make sure that I am representing not only myself, but these people that are trusting me well. And that really just made me dive in even further to be no, I'm not just a nice guy, but I'm a nice guy who knows what he's doing. And you can trust me with that. And that's a weight that I still carry. But I will say the best thing is if you want to be in real estate, be in real estate. Even if you are part-time, meaning you're getting money somewhere else, that other thing should be behind the scenes. You should be a full-time realtor to the world, even if that's not what's paying you full-time money. That's kind of the best take that I could probably give.
Yeah, I agree with that. I kind of stumbled into it. I had just sold our home and bought a home with a realtor, and he had an assistant who needed some help. So I joined her and started as contract to close. So it gave me a really great insight into the back end of how we do things, which I really think is the hardest thing to learn. We know how to talk to people. We don't always know how to write a contract. And I got a lot of experience with that in the front end before I was ever licensed. And when I finally decided to get licensed, it was the end of 2019. Got licensed. I was really excited to jump in. My first closing was January of 2020. And at the time, my kids were 2 and 4 years old. And I had no idea that the next 9, 12 months would be as crazy as they were, and that we weren't going to be getting out there building that trust and talking to people the same way that I had planned on being able to do. So I did kind of tiptoe into it because I had to put the family first. But then once I could really get into it full time, I agree with Mike, full time is the way to do it. For me, that was the formula that worked. I spent that time in 2020 really diving into education, and I still spend a lot of time educating myself because I think that is one way that we can show our clients, even though we're new, we are we know what we're doing. We've got a great network of people around us, and we're very good at what we do, and there's a reason that you've chosen us, and hopefully it's not just the experience, it's all the things that we bring to the table. So it was an unusual way to start, I think, but I wouldn't have done it any other way.
And I have a similar story to Lynn. So my position at Lippman, I was in the accounting, let me just hold this. I was in the accounting role, and I was pretty bored. It was before 2020, so before we were working from home, and it was a 8:30 to 5 job, so they put compliance on my plate because they're like, well, if you need more to do, here you go. So I learned full compliance. So I was reviewing hundreds of contracts, so when I got my license, I actually knew how to write a contract and what needed to go on the contract. So when I was going to meet with clients and people, I was like, well, I've been in real estate for 3 years, been licensed for a couple months, but I've been in real estate. So I was able to use those experiences to get me through in the door with these clients. Honestly, my business has been very organic. It's kind of snowballed, which has been awesome. I can contribute a ton of it to my marketing team at Lippman Group. They are incredible. Olivia's here, our marketing manager. But just what they put out and what they provide is just above and beyond. I farm my neighborhood and my community pretty heavily. And with that, and just farming and marketing alone, I've sold over $9 million just from doing that. So it's just staying consistent and doing what works for you.
All right, I like it. So, so you guys, now, your phone's ringing, emails are coming in, but you're close enough to when you were licensed that you can probably remember you got your license. And, I would be thinking if I were a new agent, okay, great, I'm licensed. But what do I do after I eat breakfast in the morning, right? Give some advice to that new agent who, is ready to work hard, but is not sure how to structure their day. How do you structure your day when you're a new agent to make sure you're productive?
Or can you even afford breakfast?
I would say one of the best things that I heard early on was you treat it like a job. So if for me it was a little bit different because I went from music artist world into a 9-to-5. Back into this, which I think for some people feels weird. For me, it felt very comfortable. The way money flows in and the way you have to kind of dictate your day and no one's doing it for you. I felt a little bit like coming back to home. I will say just practically, when I first got my license, my first closing was 2 weeks after I got my license. And it was literally because my brother and brother-in-law are builders, and I was like, okay, well, if I find them lots, then they could buy them, build a house, and I could sell it. And so I literally spent the first couple hours of every day driving around Williamson County looking for empty lots, and I would just call. I'd figure out who owned them, call, and be like, hey, are you interested in selling your lot? And you would think, Mike, that's a waste of time. But I happened to stumble upon another builder who was like, well, actually, yeah, we want to get rid of these 2 lots in Ladd Park, which is a great neighborhood in Franklin. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then 2 weeks later, we close on those 2 lots, and now there's beautiful spec homes that I'm about to list. So I think it's taking what's available to you, not being everything to everybody. When people are like, invest, buy, sell, it's okay, but what do you do? What do you specialize in? And for me, it was okay, I have this, so let's focus there. And then it quickly became the job.
Yeah,
Just quick follow-up question. Did you have a map? How did you keep from just doing the same circle?
And the thing is I still do this because I've had so much success with it. Because everything from land in Leaper's Fork that I got, at crazy price off market because I happened to call and be like, "Are you interested?" And I will say there's really not a rhyme or reason. It's not like I've mapped out here's what I'm going to do today. Part of it is also me just knowing my market. I want to drive through neighborhoods that I've never been in. I don't want someone to walk up and say, oh, you know that neighborhood, and me be like, no, I've never heard of it. It's oh yeah, I know that. And so I still make it a part of my routine, whether it's I'm going from one place to another, where I'm like, oh, okay, I can venture off over here and see what's, I just want to know my market, and that's part of it.
I started out going to the office. I found that when I was in, when I was in the office, I was surrounded by other people who were busy and they were working, and I was asking questions and I was observing, what is it that you're doing? Why are you doing this process? And the more I was there, the more I built those relationships. And then I also, sometimes they'd say, hey, will you do this open house for me? Or I've got more on my plate than I can handle. Would you take this one for me? I can't take this buyer. And so it just helped me to start building that confidence. It built my network, and I learned a lot of skills from some really great people, and then started to develop my own systems. And now I similarly, not driving around looking at land like Mike, but I do make it a point to go to broker opens and learn areas that I may not know, or maybe I do know and I want to showcase that to my network, because I think it's really important that we always have a pulse on what's happening in our community.
Yeah, very similar to Lynn. I was in the office a lot, obviously, because I run the office, so I had to be there. But I'm with agents all the time, constantly talking about stuff. And I was doing open houses for them. This was at end of 2020. Yeah, so open houses were kind of back. So I started doing open houses. I remember for my first 3 months, I never really had like training on like how to get clients, like what to do. So I listened to a lot of podcasts, did a lot of my own research. And I remember the first time I had a call, and it was from an open house. The parents of this girl came, and I like wrote them a handwritten note, like, thank you for coming. And then their daughter reached out 3 months later and was like, you met my parents, they want to buy. And I was like, it's happening, I can do this. Like, I have a client. And I was so excited. And then like 2 weeks later, I got a referral from the RE/MAX network from someone who her niece was moving here, and she liked my picture in my bio. And I was like, okay, well, let's do this. So it definitely snowballed, but it's putting in the work, and it's showing up for people. And it's also saying yes. So if someone needs you to show a property or do an open house or do whatever, it's saying, yes, I can do it. And then my second year in real estate, it was back in January when things are slow again, and I had an agent in my office, had a client who was moving here from California. Surprise. They wanted to buy land in Mount Juliet where I am, and I was like, he was like, can you just handle it? And I was like, absolutely, got it. And that was a FSBO, and that FSBO turned into, I sold their house, they bought a house, sold another house for them, and now she's one of my best friends. So it's just saying yes and showing up for people and doing your job.
So as a new agent, support is crucial, and honestly, it's something we all need at every stage of our career and in life. We can't, solely rely on the support that just kind of comes our way. We've discussed how the industry can be a mixed bag. Some people are going to be supportive, others not so much. What advice do you have for other agents on how to navigate, kind of both the positive and the negative in terms of feedback, opinions, just things you kind of run into on a daily basis? One thing I do note is all three of you are at firms that are kind of known for having support systems that are, there's different brokerage models. I think you all three are, I would say, are at firms that have, robust support systems. But how do you think about those things?
I think it starts with the brokerage. Ask questions. When you're new and you don't know what you're getting into, you need to talk to different brokerages and brokers and ask the questions. What support do you offer? What kind of mentors do you have? And don't just rely on them. It's up to us as professionals to develop our own development, really, to find those mentors, to find the people that we can rely on and ask questions. So if it's not there in your brokerage, find it. In my current place, I was looking for a network of solo agents. It wasn't around, and so I went to one of the brokers and said, hey, can we build this? And we've got a great network of 10 to 15 solo agents who meet every single week, and we talk about what we're experiencing, what we're doing, how we're successful, what's not working. And it really has helped with my development, and it wasn't there right away, so I found it, I created it, and I think it's up to us to not pin our success on someone else. But it also, we have to do the research on the front end. Know where you're going, know what your brokerage offers. Not every brokerage is designed for that level of support. Some are made for a more experienced agent. That may not be the best place to start. So make sure you have that trust in the people that you're working with.
Yeah, I mean, what I really love about what you said is you're responsible for your future, your destiny, what you put on the table, how hard you work, right? And so you saw a need and you did it. I think that's what people have to do. They have to step up and take accountability for their own self and make it happen. So that's really awesome.
Thank you.
And screw mean people.
That's right.
Right. Well, and it's also take into account whose opinion it is. Like I still do this. Like I look at a lot of other people's business, and it's like, whose business is inspiring to me? Where do I want to be in 10 years? I go to those people and literally still reach out and just say, hey, your business is inspiring to me. Can I buy you coffee? And most of the time they say yes. And so I get to go and sit down, and it's like, that's an opinion that matters to me. There's a lot of other opinions that I'm like, well, that works for you, but your business doesn't look anything like what I want mine to look like. So it's like you kind of, that's how I filter the good and the bad. It's like, who are you? Everyone has an opinion, right? Like, who are you allowing to speak into? And it's your own business. I love the fact people told me, Mike, you're not going to make any money for at least a year. Just buckle up. And I was like, oh man, I mean, I came into this like in terror of like, I can't not make money for a year. And then within the first 2 weeks, it's like, oh, okay, so my story looks different, you know? And so it's really not allowing other people to define your business. Like, you define it.
Absolutely. I think with the negative feedback or whatever, like that, you have to look at like, where are they coming from and what is their intention with this? If you have a client who's mad at you and who's emotional and they're telling you how terrible you are, probably not the best feedback to get, and they, maybe just let that one go. But I think it's just seeing, like, if people are giving you constructive criticism, that's one thing, but just being a jerk, which we don't like, no thank you. You can keep your opinion to yourself.
I also think along with that, we have to be intentional about not falling into the trap of that group think that you sometimes hear in brokerages where it's been a really hard day and then it piles on. And it's easy to get sucked into that conversation and walk away not feeling great and like, why am I doing this? But when I start to hear it, and I don't as much but sometimes you hear it, and you have to really set your mindset to take out of it the good and walk away if it's not a healthy conversation, and know that we all do business differently, and somebody may have needed that venting moment, but that's not healthy for my own business to get sucked into that.
Yeah, last thing I would say, have people in your life and in your sphere that know you, know what you want to do, and help you get there. My friend Tammy's here today. I'll call her and I'll be in the dumps, and she'll be like, Mike, shut up. She's like, you've had an amazing year. Like, suck it up, And so it's like, okay, you're right. Like, just to have those people in place that, because this whole business is ebb and flow, right? So it's like, and my ebb and your flow are different. Like, we're not all in it at the same time. So to make sure you have people who can just give you perspective based on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. I mean, I feel like every day it's like between 8 and 11, I've hit like 7 different moods, so you sort of know what it is. But it really is that power, I think, of the law of attraction, right? It's like if you put out positive things, then you get it back. And that's why I feel like you look around, and if you see a really positive person, they have a million friends because it feels good and we're craving that. So I think that's great information. Okay, so the next and last little segment that we do here is, sorry, checking the time. It's called Around the Wheel. It's where we give some sort of real life examples that either we've had or someone else has asked us about, or we've heard about in some way. Okay, so let's say you've just landed your first potential listing appointment, as you did relatively recently. It's likely that the person may say, how many of these have you done before? And you're thinking, uh-oh. And so how do you combat that? What's your response to that objection? Because almost the question is an objection in and of itself if your answer is, I've done nada.
Right. So for me, I was able to say, well, I've been in real estate for 3 years. Also, I'm new, but I have a team behind me, a marketing team, a managing broker that fully support me, that will help me get through this. My first listing, however, I walked in and there was a hole in the ceiling. And they're like, yeah, our upstairs bathroom leaks, so we're just going to sell it as is. And I was like, Well, the comps that I pulled did not include a hole in the ceiling. So I was able to use the tools that we had, which we had a thing called Lippman Elevate, which is they come in, they fix a house, you pay for it at closing kind of thing. And so having those tools, I was able to show my value and then make them like $50,000 more on their sale. So that's how I did it.
I think being prepared and knowing that you're going to have objections, knowing what your answer is going to be ahead of time. I went into my first listing knowing that was going to be an objection. And like Kendra could call in my past experience. We bring experience beyond just listing a house. We bring all of our background, all of our knowledge that came in all of the other jobs that we've done. And we can also call on the people that are around us. And so that first listing appointment, I was able to show that. And I also had great marketing materials and great information, and I had done my research. And so I almost overcompensated with the knowledge and the research to show them so that there was no question that I knew what I was doing. So by the time they got to that question, it wasn't even an issue anymore because I had prepared so much. And I still treat every listing that way because I don't always know who else they're talking to. And I want to know that I came more prepared than anybody else because that's how I treat every transaction.
Hey, I think that is fantastic dating advice as well, by the way. I don't know how many they're dating. It does not matter because I'm the best.
Well, and I do think, I mean, just to say it bluntly, we all say it, but it's like fake it till you make it, right? So it's like, even though you walk in and you know you've never done this before, I even think people, especially in my scenario, people knew that I was a new agent. But thankfully, there was a level of trust that was already built that like, okay, I trust Mike. And so with that, again, it's not taking advantage of that, but it's making, like you said, it's overcompensating for that. So I would say one of the things that was helpful for me at the time, I had a couple other agents in our office who had listings around that listing. So I was able to come in with like some behind the scenes knowledge of like, well, I know this sold for this. And, you know, it's coming in with like, okay, he knows what he's doing. He knows the market around me. He knows what's selling and why. Just helped instill a confidence. And I'll also say, you know, yes, I think face-to-face is the best way to build a business, but your social media is the front door, I think. You know, a lot of people might go there first. So for me, I got a lot of like, oh man, I trust your eye from what I see on social media. And it's like, okay, well, if you trust my eye, like here's my thoughts. And so I can walk through a house instead of it being like I'm picking it apart. They were able to trust and be like, okay, Mike knows. And so, you know, I was able to be like really honest about we need to do this, we need to hide this, we need to put this, and you know, it really made for my first, granted the market was very different, but my first 3 listings all went for $100K over ask, you know, and part of it was the market, but part of it was because they trusted that I knew what I was doing to help get them there.
Okay, next question. So this one is in the broad category of what to do when your client is not doing what you need them to do, right? So like as a young
Never.
That never happens.
That never happens. Like when Kendra said like, oh my God, this is happening. Like I've got a client, right? So you're a new agent, you've got a contract, you're going to closing. We have started to see at the title company way more contracts cancel on the buy side than we have seen, you know, in memory. We're used to seeing things like, I'm going to cancel because of the inspection, I'm going to cancel because I couldn't get a loan, something like that. I'm on the phone a lot these days, though, with people who, like I said, there should just be another line on the termination form that says, I didn't think my payment was going to be so high, right? And so people are just backing out. So what do you do when you have a buyer, if you've had this experience, who is just backing out and they don't have a contingency? Like, what advice do you give them?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, that specific scenario hasn't happened to me yet. But the thing that I'm doing differently to hopefully avoid that is obviously, yes, pre-approval is important, but even more so. Like, I used to like, we'd go look at some things and whatever, and they'd be like, yeah, make sure you do that. Now it's like, we're not even going to look at anything until you've been pre-approved. So you've sat down with somebody, because everyone will say, oh yeah, you know, we could do probably like 700 to 800. It's like, all right, well, go talk to a lender. And then they come back and they're like, oh, psych, I can do like 400. And you're like, oh, okay. But it makes
Then
it
they've
to
seen
where.
those $700,000 houses, and they're looking at a $400,000 house going, oh.
Makes
Well,
a big
and
difference.
yeah, that's why you don't even
Yeah.
walk in the door of the 800 because they can't afford that. And then, or you go so far down the road and then they get that moment of like, oh, psych, we can't. So it's like there's just a lot more education and front end work as opposed to, I feel like, previous market. Again, I say previous markets. I've only done this for 2 years, and I feel like we've been in 4 different markets. Like my whole first year, I didn't even do a repair proposal, and then it was like, oh wait, what is this? You know, so it was like I feel like, and I think I'll look back, we all will, and say we're thankful because there's a lot of agents who didn't get that experience in such a short time. But that's what I said. It's knowing the market and knowing what your client can and can't do.
I do think some of that comes from experience too. Like we've probably both been burned by taking somebody to something they couldn't afford and realizing should have done that step. And now it's just part of my policy. If we're going to work together, these are the things that we need before we get started. And if you aren't ready for that, that's okay. Then let's figure out your timeline to get you where you need to be, because I don't want to waste your time, my time, the seller's time, and that listing agent's time if we're looking at something. So it comes back to that setting expectations. I haven't had that exact experience, but I think there's a lot of red flags along the way. And when I start to see red flags, I ask a lot more questions. And if the questions make that buyer uncomfortable, there's probably a good reason. I have probably prevented that because somebody called a couple weeks ago and said, hey, can you show me this in 45 minutes? I've got all cash. And I said, well, I need your ID because I need to know that I'm meeting you and I'm safe. Do you have a pre-approval? Or do you have proof of funds? And I started asking these questions, and he said, you know what, never mind. And I thought, your ID may have checked out in our Forewarn app, but you clearly had some other red flags. So I think it's on us and I'm not saying that everybody who's been in that experience didn't follow through on those things. I just think it still can happen, but I think there are some things that we can put in place policy-wise to protect ourselves and our clients from these things happening.
And I think buyers who are backing out, I haven't had it happen under contract yet, knock on wood, but I think it's knowing your contract and knowing how to communicate with your buyers of like, you can't just leave. Like, you can't just say, oh, no, I don't want this house anymore. Like, there are specific deadlines that have to be made in this contract, and there are specific things you have to do to buy this house, and just communicating that up front with your buyers and sellers as well.
All right, last question in this round. Our mailbag question. So over the years, we've seen a lot of buyers who we describe as, quote, big fakers. They are they are folks who claim to be purchasing real estate, often for cash with a very quick closing deadline, but then they ghost at the last minute. It's never clear what their plan or motive is. Do they enjoy just watching folks run around getting ready for a closing that is never going to happen? When they are contacted by a potential buyer, when you are contacted by a potential buyer, you know, what do you do to kind of help vet them? And I will say, like, every tower project we have worked on in Nashville, there have been at least one person that fits into this kind of bucket, usually who has rented a Lamborghini from Dream Cars to show up at the sales center.
So bizarre.
My broker, he walked out, but he would laugh because I have an incredible listing currently. It's priced at $6.8 million, and I thought, like, okay, I'm gonna get legit, which most are legit, right? But it's also, it feels like that price point brings out the crazies. I've had a African prince. I've had, like, and the thing is, you get proof of funds and you think you're doing your due diligence, and then you realize, oh man, like, this doesn't add up. But you're right. Like, I still, with the African prince who gave me a business card that says the prince of some made up country in Africa. It's like, what is the what is the goal here? It's still, you never know, but I do think it has put me way more, especially in the luxury market, like making sure that I'm protecting my sellers by, like, I'm now not just taking your pre-approval or your proof of funds for fact. Like, I'm actually calling the numbers, talking to bankers, talking to their investment guys, and making sure that it is real. Because you're right, I don't know if it's, we just want to look at cool houses and this is how we do it. I don't know the answer to that.
I haven't had that happen specifically. And it may not, it may be because you are in a luxury market, you're probably going to have some different experiences, but I think also partnering with great people, the title company is a big part of that, and you guys know, you kind of have learned the red flags too, and you can look at something and go, this seems a little weird, this African prince isn't starting to check out. So I think it's also having the right people on your side and asking questions. And, I don't know if we can ever completely prevent stuff, but I do think we have to just dig in a little more when we aren't quite sure it's something new.
And to Lynn's point, I think that's one role that we can play a lot of times, right? Because you guys are establishing the relationship. You want that customer to call you back. We can kind of be the bad guy and be like, hey, super sorry, we need 9 forms of ID, and back you up.
I'm just imagining when the African prince called you. Well, I mean, what part of you believed it was true the moment he said he was an African prince?
Well, first of all, we didn't know that until he handed me the business card, which I was like, you probably should have just left that. But, and again, it comes down to agents as well. Like, I'll just say, I think Agent 101 is be a good communicator. And do your own like Charlie, my broker, like we ended up having to call the agent and be like, hey, we think this is not real. And she swore up and down that, no, it's real. And she told us this whole story. And we're like, you don't hear how that doesn't sound real? And I get it. It's like you want it to be real. But the thing that I would say also from my perspective, being on the listing side, we went from a market where a buyer's agent was calling you the second you put up a listing and buttering you up and trying to get it, to now a market where it's like you try to get feedback from a listing and agents are ghosting you.
It's like pulling teeth.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of like, it's not hard as an agent to say, hey, great house, not for my buyer, or here's some feedback. And it's really put me in a position of, there's going to be a time where the market switches again. And you better believe the agents that I've tried to get to communicate that haven't, it's like you don't forget that. And so I do think it's important as a new agent to remember, no matter what market you're in, just be a good agent, which isn't that hard. It's like literally just shooting a text sometimes. Like, yeah.
I'll say the other day we had a contract that came in, and one of our processors came and he said, hey, this is supposed to close on Monday. I think this was maybe Thursday. He's like, the agent for the buyer knows he's in the penitentiary, doesn't really know how to get in touch with him. And I said, well, like just any penitentiary? Like where are we supposed to start here, And surprised it didn't close by Monday or Tuesday. But like, how did that contract even get written, right? It was a real perplexing thing, but neither here nor there. Since I have the microphone, I'll go ahead and just say, give us a couple sentences on why you think your clients work with you. Tell people where they can find you. Your spiel. It doesn't have to be a big one. It can be a little one.
I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think all three of us, we're relational. It's about that client and finding and meeting their needs. And for me, it's what are your needs? How can I be proactive to come up with ideas and solutions, especially in a tough market? And everybody is different. Everybody needs something a little different. And I don't have one way of always doing the same thing. I have some policies that I always follow to help you, but it's getting a little creative, thinking outside of the box. And I enjoy finding new ways to think about things and find those solutions and different challenges. So, and the other question is, where can they find us? I am lynnsmith.realtor on Instagram and lynnsmithrealtor.com.
I would say it's one of the things that I love about Tyler York, which is just people over profit. So my business isn't motivated by the money. The business is motivated by the people, and realizing, we're in a service industry. And so sometimes serving people well means, hey, maybe you shouldn't buy right now. Maybe we should wait till next year. And so then people trusting you and saying, okay, he's not just trying to get a commission. He's really looking out for my best interest. Is my experience so far. So, and just Mike Grayson on Instagram, and yeah.
I like that you're telling them what they can't have so that they beg
I completely agree with that. When people are chasing a commission or chasing a sale, clients know that. Like, they know that what the agent's intentions are. So for me, I think people come to me because I'm genuine. I love what I do. I love people. I love helping people. So I think that's been pretty consistent in my business. And you can find me, it's Kendra Nitz Realtor on Instagram and social. But if you just Google Kendra Nitz, there's only one of me, and easy to find.
So who should we do this with next? One of the things we're always trying to do is come up with topical themes, content that realtors are really going to be interested in. But who are some people, it can be one or two, that you think could be a great person to have on as a guest?
I think Bobby Noreen is excellent. She knows her stuff, she knows her contracts, and she's going to tell you exactly what you're doing wrong. So she is wonderful. My managing broker is Anna Altick. She's also so stinking smart. Like, I ask her a question, and she's like, you know the answer to this. I'm like, but what would you say here? So I think those two women are just incredible.
I don't have specific people, but I do think just knowing that we're in like a really historic, different market, and that we might be, it's like almost, and again, I know it's not 2008, but going back to agents who were in that season and like, how did your business shift and what did it look like? And just kind of people who have gone through what also felt very abnormal and kind of how they were successful through it. So that could be a lot of different people, but.
I could give you a list. I love meeting with other agents, and there's so many talented people in this business. The couple that came to mind were Jacob Jones. I love what he's doing. I think he is renovating beautiful homes, and they're selling very quickly. Marie Lee is a powerhouse on social media. She does incredible marketing. And I would love to see some nonprofit real estate adjacent support that are out there. There's Homes for Homes, there's Dream Streets, which I'm involved in, and I think there's some others out there who offer a lot to our industry and help kind of give back through this industry, and I would love to see some of them on this podcast as well.
Okay, that's great suggestions. Thank you. So that is a wrap for today. Please submit ideas for future episodes in Real Estate Mailbag